Hi, and welcome to today's webinar, sponsored by CIDM and Comtech, and we're pleased to have the folks from Fluid Topics with us today. Just in case you don't know, well, hi Fabrice, you want to say hello since I mentioned it? There we go.
Hi, everybody.
Since most of you probably know that Comtech and CIDM are one and the same, Comtech is our consulting arm, and we've been helping clients improve their content since 1978, so for a very long time, helping them with everything from content strategy, information modeling, taxonomy development, which is really important for the things that work with the Fluid Topics environment as well. So that's a key thing that we do. And we also teach training classes. And from our consulting organizations, our clients wanted us to form a member organization, so they had a way to interact and network with each other. And through that CIDM organization, we put on webinars like this. We also host conferences, and the members get to meet monthly for a manager discussion so they can learn from one another. And we do publish the best practices newsletter.
So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So as Kelly said, I'll be your speaker today. I'm Fabrice Lacroix, the founder and CEO of Fluid Topics. And for those who don't know, Fluid Topics is a content delivery platform. So what we do and what this solution does is collecting any product in technical documentation that you have, transform this content to create a unified knowledge hub, knowledge center, deliver this content to any channel where it is needed, and optimize the use of that content. Okay, so by working on any device, providing ways for users to interact and engage with content, tracking the usage of content, and all these capabilities. So that's what we do with Fluid Topics. That's our mission. We help tech companies change the way they deliver content, transition to content as a service, and help them transform the customer support and field service operations. So we work with large and small companies all over the world. You see some of them here. Some of them are in the US, some of them are in Europe, a bit in Asia. Different domains. For some of them, the use case is more customer support related. For other companies that are selling hardware, the use case may be more field service related. But anyway, they do have the same needs, is how to transform the user experience and help people better find the info they need the moment they need it. From a software perspective, and that's the last intro slide, this is what Fluid Topics is. That's a full feature software stack with all the modules that are needed for capturing this content, transforming and enriching content, the search, serving the content. And as you can see, one part of the stack relates to analytics, which is tracking the way people use, access, and consume this content. And this is what we are going to talk about today. So that's the topic of this talk. We're going to talk about next-gen analytics and how this can turn your technical content into a more strategic asset. We're going to see that measuring is a little bit more complex than it seems, that making sense of the number is not always easy as well, and that there are innovative ways to generate and render those metrics. And beyond analytics that you may think about, there are more things that can be done that will create a huge value for your company. So those are the main points we're going to talk about today. So we didn't prepare a poll, even though we have the questions, so you don't have to reply to that formally, but still, I think it's worth reviewing those points and probably in your head, review where you are today. So where are you with your analytics on your technical content? Do you have only vague insights on what's happening, so you don't know exactly and precisely what people do with your content? Or do you have a lot of detailed stats, a lot of numbers, but you're not pretty sure what it means and how to read and use those numbers and how you can act based on the numbers? Or you have no metrics at all, or you have some of them, but you can't share them and you can't really leverage that inside your company. So probably depends on where you are, what tool you use for measuring. So probably think about it and say how satisfied you are with what you have today. So we all understand that knowledge is critical. Okay, so it's used at every touch point of the user journey. Before people become customers, they use it for discovering your product. Then when they become customer, for installing, configuring, running the product, and probably in the aftermarket part for maintaining, servicing, repairing your product. So it's everywhere that this content is needed. And this is why you invest in content. Okay, you have your tools, whatever they are. Okay, that may be from very unstructured, you're working with Word or FrameMaker, to something super advanced with data or your own XML schema, probably a mix of all that. You have people involved in writing, so technical writing team, you try to involve subject matter experts in the process. So that's a lot of money and effort into this process. And then you deliver that. And at the end of the day, probably the question is for today, what do you know? What do you know from how people use your content, what they search for, what they read, what they don't read? Why do people use your content, by the way? Why do they need it? What are the problems they need to solve? And do you measure the impact of this work and this money that you invest on the company, how it can help reduce, increase customer satisfaction, increase customer loyalty, reduce calls to the support team, help improve the product as well? So how do you measure the impact of your work? Can you do that? And how do you, and by the way, do you struggle to get budget approval for buying more tools, buying new tools, switching to structured authoring, buy better delivery products like free topics? So those are probably the questions that you have in your mind and that you are facing today. So it all relates to analytics at some point, because if you can't measure, you can't improve. And it's even worse than that. If you cannot show what you're doing, and if you cannot prove the benefits of what you're doing and this investment that you do, then for many people inside the company, that doesn't even exist. I mean, if you cannot prove how much your content helps your customer, helps the users, reduce the cost to the customer support, then it's like it's not existing at all. So this is why it's very important to be able to measure what the value of your content, the impact of your content on the operations of the company, and to be able to show that and deliver those numbers inside your company. So talking about numbers, first, probably we need to dig a bit into, because it's critical to understand the current situation, the pitfalls and the limitations and the complexity of measuring content consumption. And there's a fact that is what you measure is bound to the way you deliver content. Okay, that's unavoidable. Well, if you were in the past before, if you were printing your documentation and shipping those books and binders, okay, the only number that you knew that you had was the number of printed books and shipped books, physical books. So basically, you don't know much. You just have the same number of the shipped number of products because there was one binder per box. So as you can see, no number, no info. You're gonna tell me that you've stopped that, you don't print anymore, that you have turned digital. Probably for most of you, still static publishing. And again, here we are facing the same fact. What you measure is bound to how you deliver. If you just put PDFs on a website, what you measure are downloads, not real content consumption, just PDF downloads. And once a PDF is downloaded, you don't know if people open it. Never, once, several times. Maybe that PDF has been downloaded and put on a departmental server inside a company and is used by hundreds of people every day, but you have no clue. Okay, so basically when you do PDFs, you just measure downloads. Then you're going to tell me, no, now we've switched to HTML and we've put HTML on a website. That doesn't really solve the problem. Because here, what you measure in that case are page loads. And you hit a second issue. fact number 2. The numbers that you get, what you capture here, is not really content consumption. Okay, it's page loads, and it's impacted by the content structure and how you generate the pages. Let me explain. If you say you write in data, okay, you're topic based, and you generate 1 page per topic, you may end up having very small pages like what you see on the screen. And then people have to click next pref. Okay, so the good thing is that because it's very fragmented, the info that is displayed at the one moment is quite small, it's pretty accurate, and you know exactly what people read, because basically if it's displayed long enough, you can be pretty sure that they have read what's in this topic. But the user experience is pretty tedious because they have to move from topic to topic by clicking next pref. Okay. But on the other side, if you want to provide a better user experience, you may generate longer pages that are, for example, at the section or chapter level. Then probably it's easier for the users to read because they have more info inside the same page and they don't have to navigate too much. But because the page is longer, you don't know exactly what part of the page they read. And the longer the page, probably the easier at some point for the user to read the content, but the less you know about exactly what they have read inside that page. And you get closer to the PDF experience, which is somehow 1 page, one longer, the entire document in 1 page. So you just know that that document has been loaded, but you may not know exactly what people read inside the page, inside the document. So this is where we have this complex thing to solve, and that we face, that the content structure and how you write and probably how you generate the content impacts what you measure. And if you are at the document level, you have a quite tedious user experience, and the analytics that you get are close to none, has no value because you're just at the document level. If you generate pages at the chapter level, longer HTML pages or smaller documents, probably you provide a better UX and easier navigation to your users, but you know you have a lesser granularity on what they read. And if you'd like to know exactly what they read, you would generate smaller page. You need to generate smaller pages, but then you create a lesser user experience and inconsistent page sizes. So this is the complexity that we are facing. That's one of the complexity. The other problem that we have with technical content is that it's way more complex than websites. It's just not few pages. One product may have 5, 10, 20 manuals, okay? But then you may have variants of the same product, plus customization and options, and then version of your product, and then you translate and you have languages. So basically, you have probably tens, hundreds of variants, and you have this redundant information, which means that if you generate all the pages with all those variants, you have to understand exactly what version of the content people use, because you have this overwhelmingly huge number of pages. So say you generate all those HTML pages and put that on a website. What tools do you use for measuring? Most of the people that we see on the market tend to use a web analytics tool, okay? And they put a tracker. Most of the time it's Google Analytics. They are the leader for this sort of tools. There are others, could be Piwik, could be Adobe Analytics, could be others. But all those tools are designed for measuring page loads and for measuring websites activity, which are basically marketing activities. And the numbers they give you are about session users, but browsers, campaign performance, referral, origin, and all that, okay? And those are the dashboards. But when it comes to rendering the page consumption, the content consumption itself, that works well when you have a corporate website with few tens of pages, like what you see here, which is the previous 3 topics.com websites. And it's pretty easy to understand exactly where people go and what pages they read on a website, because we had few tens of pages. And the URL are pretty explicit and pretty straightforward to read. But when you have a website that has thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of topics, meaning tens of thousands of pages inside, having the same tables for reading the numbers makes it very, very complex. Okay, because and sometimes the topics are named the same introduction or before you begin or troubleshooting or tips or whatever. You have these redundant topic titles, section titles, and you have hundreds of them like that. And it's very difficult to exactly understand what people read when you see those tables. Not even mentioning that, as I said, because you have those variants of content, those titles become redundant. You see here, for example, even at the book level, not even at the topic level, you see this AFS configuration guide or AFS integration guide, which is one of our product. They appear multiple times because it depends on the version of the book itself, which means the version of the product. So we have this redundant information, and it's pretty complex to make sense of that. And TechDoc is not, TechDoc portals are not the only portals, the only tools that are facing issues for measuring efficiency, people's behavior, and making sense of numbers. And this is certainly why we see since a few years a new breed of tools that are dedicated to very specific problems. You've got a tool, for example, which is called Content Square, which is dedicated to analyzing content consumption, say customer journey on e-commerce website. And then they can tell, those tools tell you exactly where people go and how much money this generates, because it's an e-commerce website and people are here to buy products. So those tools track the user journey inside the website and can tell you when people click here, then they go here, then they shop, and this is the money it generates. And you see it's very, very specific for e-commerce website and very business oriented. You see the same with tools like New Relic, which are for measuring how people use the application, what features they use inside your application, and how fast the application reacts to the user interactions. So you see, those are very specific tools, and you could still use Google Analytics on your marketing website or Google Analytics on a web application. But again, the numbers that you would have wouldn't be relevant to what you want to learn about your performance with your e-commerce website or your web application. So you need dedicated tools for that. I think that's the same for technical content. We should understand, you need to understand that Google Analytics and web analytics tools are not enough for understanding what people do. Those tools are not enough for generating reliable numbers, helping you interpret the numbers and understand how people navigate inside your content, because we are talking about topics. You have a very specific content structure there, and we need to reconcile this with the structure of your content. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. Then this said that it's complex and way more complex than what people tend to imagine, that it's just about putting a Google tracker, Google Analytics tracker on pages. Then imagine you have the right numbers. So what do you want to learn now? And for preparing this this conference, I reached out to several of our customers, and I said, okay, you have 3 topics. We provide analytics, and I'll show you a bit of what we do. But again, considering what you already have today, what you know is in the roadmap, and what you don't have overall, what is it you need? Okay, what is exactly what you want to learn? What are the metrics that matter to you? So what I'm going to show you now is not only what we do, but it's really based on the interviews that we did with our customers that are already aware of the complexity of measuring, that already have specific tools for that, and say, okay, now that you are aware that you are into that, what do you need exactly? So first, that's what you said. It's about search. So then you want to know search queries. You want to understand the terms that people use, the facets, the filter that they click on when they search. Particularly, you want to understand searches with no reply. Okay, you want probably because, well, certainly because you want to know what is the content that you don't provide, that people search for and that you don't provide. So probably that helps you know exactly what you have to write about. That's also a way to know what synonyms you should be adding. either you writing differently using the keywords that people use when searching, or add synonyms somewhere so that when they search with specific terms, they find the content because the content exists. That could be a way as well for you to improve SEO. Another thing that you want to know is what keywords, when people search, what keywords lead to what content, and conversely. So imagine being in a topic, at a section level, at a chapter level, at a book level. What are the keywords that people have used? What are the most frequent searches that are associated with that content? So for you, that's important to understand that. When it comes to content consumption, what you want to know is document views. You want to understand what are the most read pieces of content. And again, it's challenging when you have thousands of docs, meaning hundreds of thousands of topics. But you want to know what people read. You want to explore, and because probably you have a lot of topics like that, you want to explore those numbers by metadata, isolate views for chapter topics, nested topics. You want ways to navigate those numbers across the hundreds of thousands of topics that you have. So those long lists. Avoid those tables that I've shown you before, like if you had Google, but have other ways to understand and make sense of the numbers. You want to know as well what are the not seen documents, the zero reads. Okay, what is not seen at all? Where do people never go? And you want as well to segment content consumption by category of users. You want to have all those, what I've said before, understand what people read, the not seen document, the searches by types of users, whether they are internal users, customers, partners, anonymous, authenticated users. So you want to sort of drill into those numbers with two sort of different views because probably that could be different per category of users. As well, you want to learn and know about user engagement. You want to know what are the most interactive documents, what are documents that are valuable to users, which are a little bit different from what are the most read documents. And valuable to users usually because they are bookmarked, or people create alerts, or they share those documents, they copy paste the URL, and they send the URL to other people, or they use those part of those documents to record their own books. We have this feature in Free Topics, which is called Personal Books, where people can rebuild their own manuals by selecting rapidly, drag and dropping topics, chapter sections, and recreate their own manuals for targeted use cases. So if they do that, if they reuse a piece of content, means that it has value to them. So you want to know that. Rating as well. You want to know how people rate content at the document level, at the topic level. That's a complex subject. Probably could do an entire talk about that because, you know, we have this, it's pretty scarce. I mean, if you have hundreds of thousands of topics and probably people don't rate that much, and usually when they rate, it's because they are not happy at all. So you're on one side of the Gaussian, or they are super happy because they say, oh my God, I love that, and that was exactly what I needed. But when you have 3 likes and 3 dislikes, which are, and you had thousands of reads of the content, it's pretty tedious, pretty complex to make sense of those like, dislike. There are indications, but quite difficult to make sure that it's a super cool content or it's a bad content as well. So again, rating is important, but quite difficult to really make sense of that. You want to understand the user journey. So how people consume, how they navigate inside the content itself. So it's not from a document perspective, what are the most readily read documents, but really it's like tracking the journey of a user, where they start, when they start searching this, what do they read, and then what do they search again, where do they go next, and inside the content, and so forth. And as well, you say, okay, we want to understand how content consumption evolves with the maturity of a user. New versus returning users, and a user that has been using your product for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, probably they will search different things and read different parts of the content because they start being used to the product, knowledgeable about the product, and probably when they start reading and searching, that's because they start having very, very specific issues and very specific questions about the product. So it's interesting to see how this content consumption evolves with the maturity of a user. And last but not least, what you say is, well, at some point we want to be able to make decisions, which mean what content should I invest on? What content should I stop maintaining or retire? What is worth translating, for example? Because if I got a piece of content that is read a lot in English, but by segmenting users, I can see that my, I don't know, German or French customers are reading a lot this English document, probably it's worth translating this piece of content that would help me justify the cost of translating that content. And conversely, if a piece of content is not read at all, neither in English nor in French, probably you can stop translating it as well and avoid these costs. So but you see, it's different having the numbers and having indicators that help you make fast decisions with this content. And at some point, you want to be able to make complex queries to identify very specific content, like create queries like show me all the docs older than 2 years, seen less than by this category of user, blah, blah, blah. Then create those sort of very, very complex queries to, I don't know, identify very specific sets of content, and again, help you make decision about those sets of content. So this is it. So this is basically what you told, what our customers told us about what they need. And as we are going to see now, it's I think that's very interesting. It's probably, I think Free Topics gives you most of this, or soon in the roadmap, or what is under development, because we took a lot of work with our customers. We are covering those needs, so we're going to see that a bit. But again, I think I was pretty intrigued by seeing the results of these interviews, that at some point our customers were shy. They could have asked for much more than that. And I will show you what we have in mind and what analytics could do for you that could be even better. So the first point, again, was the complexity, and what we try to solve with Free Topics is first generate meaningful numbers. Okay, so we try, and again, we have been forced to develop a technology that is very specific to technical documentation, the same way that Content Square has developed technology specific to tracking content, e-commerce website navigation, or New Relic has developed technology that is very specific to product adoption. We had to develop an analytics technology that is very specific to technical documentation analysis and consumption analysis. So we track all user interactions, the way they search, where they click, and we track even how long a fragment of content is displayed on the screen. So it's not page load that we track, but we track users' behavior from a UI perspective, okay? As if we were behind the shoulder of a user and say, okay, you have clicked here, you've scrolled from this paragraph to this paragraph, then you've stopped scrolling and you've displayed this piece of content 32 seconds on your screen, and then you moved on. And so we are really tracking not just what happens from a server perspective, but we track really from a screen, from a UI perspective, what people do. Which means that we are able to generate very, very accurate events numbers. And the other aspect that we had to deal with and that we solve is to map those numbers with the structure of the content, so that you really understand what people read and just not give this long list, these long tables. So what we try to do is create data visualization that helps you navigate those numbers based on what we know of the content. Free Topics knows the structure of the content. Free Topics knows the metadata of the content. So here, for example, you can analyze, select, and create those dynamically those visualization by show me what are the most read content, how people read content based on whatever metadata exists on the content, which can be product, category. So you see here, we see by Free Topics for AFS, for ABO, and other products that we have that people mostly read free topics, technical documentation, tech doc, and then it's technical notes, reference guide, release notes, and you can drill down into that. So it helps you understand visually what are the most used types of content, and you can refine that again. Or help you navigate when people start by selecting free topics by metadata, then go to TechNode, then they go to screencast, and how they move from content types to content types in their journey. For sure, then we give tables, but at the document level, which is easier to understand, and you can narrow down and filter down by content, by version, by release notes, because we have all the metadata again of the content. And the other thing we had to deal with and to focus on was how to render then what's happening inside the document, because here the numbers are at the document level. This is for a release note. This is this used free topics web API. That's a ref guide, which has probably like 400 pages long. And we know how many people have opened this document, but that doesn't tell you how they navigate inside the document. So that's why what we wanted to create. And that led us to do very much like what I've shown you with Content Square, where they show you your website and they put the numbers on top of the website itself, so that helps you see exactly where people click. We've done something similar with free topics. We create what we call heat maps. So you see this use free topics web API document. If you click on it, we open this heat maps, and this is the exact table of content. This is the structure of the document. So you see this is the document when you're inside the reader. So you see free topics web service authentication data flow, and you see the same here on the left side, which is the table of content. And then you can drill down by opening the different chapters, sections, and so forth, and drilling into that. And then you understand exactly where people go inside these documents. So it's not just listing the topics in long tables that people read, but it's really mapping the numbers, mingling that with the structure of the content itself, so that then you know exactly where people go inside the document. And you know exactly that people mostly go to the first and fourth chapter here in this document. And again, we've done the same, like say, okay, why not put the numbers inside the content itself? That would help tech writers understand exactly what people do, which means that in free topics, when you open a document and when you are a tech writer, you can say inline the numbers with the content itself, and we can sort of map the numbers within the content. So again, when you scroll the document, then we show you the trends, and you can understand exactly what people do. So that's part of the things that are very specific to TechDoc, again, as I've told you. Instead of having a tool that is separate from your content, that has no clue, no understanding, no knowledge about the structure of your content, the versions, the variants, we built something that is very specific and dedicated to technical documentation, that is aware of the structure of the documents, aware of the table of contents, aware of the variants, and that is able to map those numbers onto the content itself to help you better understand what people do. The last thing I wanted to talk about today, and which is more forward-looking, is, again, I've shown you what our customers have told us when we interview them and say, okay, what are the numbers that you need? What do you want to learn? What is important to you? Okay, you want to understand how people search, how they read, by category of user. You want to make decisions on how to maintain your content. And as you can see, all those replies were very related to the business of the TechDoc team. Because the people we talk to and our sponsors inside the companies are most of the time the TechDoc team. The way they see the analytics and the way they ask for features are related to their jobs. Help me do my job better. Help me know what I should maintain, what part of the content I should maintain, what part of the content I should translate, how to improve SEO, how to improve the writing and align the writing, the words that I use with the word that my users are using when searching and all that. But in fact, I was pretty, I wouldn't say shocked, but intrigued by the fact that they were not most adding for more, especially adding for things that could help the rest of the company, because that would help make the content itself more valuable and more visible to the rest of the company. And things we can do with free topics and with properly done analytics are, and I will talk only about two. One is product insights. So is helping you discuss with the product marketing and with your R&D and product department. Because so far, and what you ask are metrics on the objects. By objects, I mean the objects that you write, which are the books, which are the topics. Okay, so we have the numbers on the topic I've shown you, and then we can aggregate those numbers, and we can give you the numbers at the book level, at the chapter level, at the section level, and so forth. But those objects, those numbers are attached to things that are only relevant to you as tech writers. Okay, but now what we can do is apply some NLP AI technology to have the machine read what is inside those pieces of content, what is inside those topics, okay, as a human. And then probably know that these topics is related to that topic, this other topic, and they are about the same thing. It's about how to fix this part of a device, how to solve that thing, how to configure and solve this thing, like configure this part of the machine. And then we can aggregate those numbers and then deliver numbers that are not at the object level, but at the subject level, and suddenly say, okay, people are searching about duplex printing or toner cartridge. Here I'm using the example of a laser printer. And you see that's pretty different, because instead of generating long list of numbers for topics and books, suddenly you'd start generating reports that are about problems, issues about on the product. And then those numbers, those reports then can be handed over to your product department. And suddenly can help your product department reach out to them and say, hey guys, probably there's something that is not obvious to the users when it's about changing the toner cartridge, because it's something they do regularly. It should be easy to do, and they always have to look at the doc. Otherwise, and we know they look at the doc because we have the numbers, but you don't tell them for all the topics that relate to that part. You tell them toner cartridge issues, this number of views. So you can derive inside that tell what people read about, and the about is important. That's what are the key subjects that people are interested in. So that's one thing that could be derived from properly done analytics, and that then could help you, could help TechDoc show that it has value for the rest of the company, not just for you, the TechDoc department. Another thing that can be done with this new breed of analytics is helping transforming customer support. So, as I said, with modern analytics and the way we did it for Fluid Topics, we track content consumption in real time. Okay, so we don't rely on batch processing of server logs. Again, I remember what I said, we track what people do from a UI perspective, and we track that really in real time. So we have short event messages that are sent from the device to the servers. Now imagine that this stream of data, this stream of information is analyzed in real time, and that your customer support could be connected to that. And then instead of rendering what I've shown you before, most read docs and all that, from a user perspective, you can say, hey, I've got this user, Lucy, and she's currently at this very moment reading, or yesterday, Lucy has been reading, spending half an hour or an hour on our doc portal. And this is what Lucy has done. She has been searching for that, reading this, she spent that many time, then she rated that piece of content and she created a bookmark, but again, blah, blah, blah. And then you see how valuable it is for a support agent, because if you have that info as a support agent, and if Lucy reaches out to you because she or she has an issue, a problem with the product, then probably you can avoid, as a support agent, asking the user this stupid question like, did you read the documentation? Yes, you know Lucy has read the documentation, and you know exactly what she has read and how long she spent and what she has been searching for. And probably here you could suggest further reading and say, Lucy, okay, I understand your problem, but have you checked this part of the doc? And then you know that your suggestion is valuable because you know she hasn't checked that part of the doc. But you wouldn't suggest, or if you know that the reply to the problem is in this topic or this chapter, and you can see that Lucy has read this chapter, instead of saying, read this chapter, she would say, oh, I did it. Say, oh, you know, I think we have something in the documentation that could help you. Let me go with you and help you read through that, because that probably there's something here that can help you. Because sending the user back to that piece of content, if it's already been read, wouldn't solve the issue. So you see, as a support agent, that has tremendous value to have this inside, because then you can really do tailored caretaking customer support. So that's one thing that can be done with content consumption analytics. And you can even go one step further, which is doing predictive customer service, meaning that if you track in real time what people search and read, and you know that probably in 80% of the in the past, for the people that have been doing the same search and reading the same piece of content, they ended up opening a ticket anyway. Probably then you can in real time raise a flag to the customer support engine and say, hey, you know, lots of chance that this guy will reach out to you and be very annoyed, because each and every time people that have been searching for that anyway ended up opening a ticket. And then probably you can reach out in advance to that user and say, can I help you? Because you know that person needs help. And that could also be used for like triggering, piloting what it's called next best action. You know, this dialog box, this dialog that pops up that you put like intercom that you put in pages. Most of the time, the show up and the raise with very naive rules, like after 3 minutes or 5 pages. And sometimes it's quite intrusive. You don't want that. And here, imagine that you could trigger this pop-up window, like proposing your support, driven by this real-time analysis of what people read and how long, and if they do the same search over and over again, just changing a few keywords, and feel like the engine knows that it's searching about the same thing, and it has been 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes, too much content read for the same issue, then probably it's time to reach out proactively. And then you can trigger this pop-up window proposing for help. So this is exactly the sort of things that can be done with analytics and with modern analytics on tech content. So that's it. So takeaway, yeah, tech doc delivery done right is a sensor, as we've seen. It's a direct connection to your user's brain, because now you understand what people do, what they are looking for, what are the problems they are facing, and you can help them in a better way. And if you do that, then your tech doc has way more value, and the value is 1,000-fold more than what it is today. Just putting that on a website, tracking downloads, and keeping those numbers for you, and say, okay, those people to download those PDF or use just your Google Analytics somewhere. So I think that tech doc has the ability to play a more strategic role in your company if you do it right. So if you deliver tech doc the right way, and delivering the tech doc the right way means as well have the proper analytics tools embedded in the process, then you can definitely redefine the role and the value of tech doc inside your company. Which leads me to this question I asked at some point, which is, do you struggle to get budget approval for new tools, new platforms, and new projects around tech doc? I guess that if you go down that path and you can show that by switching to modern product, modern delivery, you could generate this value, I bet you it will be way more easier for you to get those budget approval. That's it.
All right, thank you, Fabrice. If there's questions, remember, use the questions dialog box. We've got plenty of time. We've allocated, to the 1/2 the hour, but and Fabrice will stay on as long as there's questions. So take advantage of him being here. And again, use the questions dialog or the chat. And of course, one's coming in for, can you build your own reports from the data that are provided in Fluid Topics, or only your reports?
Well, yes and no. No, because it comes with dashboards and reports that are pre-configured out of the box, so that you just have to click. And at this moment, it's us building the reports. So that's why we interview our customers to know what reports they need, meaning that the reports themselves are somehow configurable. I mean, you can choose the metadata for drilling down into, if you remember this, back to this sort of reports like here, you know, the metadata, you choose them, it's all dynamic. So but this report itself, which is the tree view of the content library usage, it's a pre-built report. But again, as you can see, there is an export to XLSX button everywhere on all the pages, meaning that you can access our through API. You can download all the numbers and then rebuild your own reports using a spreadsheet or using, we have customers using Tableau or Click to build things that are very specific to them. What we try to build inside Free Topics are reports that are readily available out of the box and that are matching the needs that our customers have reported to us.
Okay. And for the customer service interactions that you were talking about, where you would know what the person has read, I'm assuming that's for protected content only, where the users have logins that identify that. But the one where you can pop up a help could be for an open platform, right? The user wouldn't have to log in for that.
No, you're not forced to log in. In that case, probably you would have something here. If you refer to that, probably here you would have an ID, no picture, an ID, and say, okay, we have this user. We don't know who it is right now, and that's it. So, but if you can track users and you can know that the same user has read this and then probably open a ticket. And at some point is if during an interaction that they have, like opening a ticket or asking a question, then you have a name, then we can always resolve this ID that we have to that name at some point.
Okay, because I know that there's this, you know, some companies want all of their documentation with login portals, and other people want it to be completely open to the public. So it looks like you've got both.
Open doesn't mean that you don't know who people are. Open means there's no security rules, meaning that whether people are logged or not logged in, authenticated or not, they see the same content. That's open content. But again, you can still provide login capabilities to users and when the login, you can, which is the case with Free Topics, you have more capabilities, more features on the platform. You can have bookmarks, then you can create your own books, then you can create alerts. So for that, you need an account. So meaning that at some point you have to propose something to the user that say, hey, if you create an account, you'll get access to the same content, but you'll get more features as well for helping you, like you can personalize the search results or things like that. So that's the thing, like even though content is publicly available, still you can try to identify people so that then you can know who they are and better help them.
Right. Okay. I don't know that there's any other questions, and usually when I say that, a bunch of questions come in. So don't be shy, you guys. Take advantage of Fabrice while he's here. Even if it's not related to the analytics part, if you have other questions about the Fluid Topic platform. I have an unrelated question since you're here. Is Antidot still a company, or have you rebranded yourself to be Fluid Topic in the product name?
Well, Antidot is the company that's the maker of Fluid Topics.
Okay.
And I think that more and more we're just Fluid Topics.
So that's what I'm seeing. Because I see you're
taking away the company name to become Free Topics, because that has become almost our only product, our main focus. So I mean, we have those other products like the search, and that we are, and we have customers that come for machine learning, based NLP or search, semantic search, because that's where we are very strong at that. But
right.
Otherwise, honestly, Free Topics becomes the thing.
Right. I always wondered about that, because I've seen more and more on the Fluid Topics side. All right. Well, I also wanted to do a shout out when I was doing the webinars. I guess I forgot to point out that Fluid Topic is doing a joint webinar with DCL.
Yeah.
Oh, and when is that? That's coming up, right?
Yeah, it's I think it's exactly next week, same day, same hour. So next Wednesday, same time, and different subject, very interesting. We are going to talk about discuss the how to get the money. That same subject. How to get the money for for buying a CCMS and a CDP. Well, your project, how do you convince and get support from your top exec, your management for buying a CMS and moving to structured content. Again, we see a lot of companies struggling into getting those budget approval, especially now with those uncertain economic times with the pandemic and so forth. So we see people coming to us and say, oh, we love free topics, we'd like to have that, but we haven't structured content yet. We have no metadata, blah, blah, blah. We don't have the budget. We need to do the entire project. So there is a way to deal with that. And we are going to discuss the strategy and the optimal path to get the support of your management. There are things to be done here.
Sounds interesting. And I knew it while you were talking more.
Analytics is a byproduct. As I said, analytics is a byproduct of that, because when you have a strong content-heavy platform, you can say to your management, look, if we do a CDP, if we have free topics, we could provide things like that, help customer support, better understand this, optimize transaction costs, blah, blah, blah. So it's all about advertising internally. What are the benefits for the entire company to doing those sort of projects, and in what order they should be done, and how to deliver faster and more visible results more rapidly to get this support.
Sounds good. And while you were talking about that, as I suspected, questions are now starting to come in, so that's good. So let's talk about how you handle reuse topics that may appear in multiple places.
Yeah, a little bit same as book. We can give the numbers from the topics in an aggregated way. Like imagine the topic is used 20 times. So we know the 20 different numbers. We know how many times this topic has been seen in that context, meaning in that document, in that book, for that version, that variant of the content. So we have the 20 numbers for each variant of the topic. And we can show those 20 numbers separately, especially when we do things like the heat map, if you remember, because the heat map may be for one specific version of the book. Here it's for the version 3.7. So we have the number for that very specific variant of the topic, but we can also give the number for all the versions of the topic at the same time, which is just for us adding the numbers from the 20 numbers that we have and say this topic overall, regardless of the variants, is seen that number of times. And more specifically for that variant of the product, this number of times. Same for the books. We can tell you this book is used 1,000 times over the 20 variants of the book itself, and this is how it's used for this version of the book, for the version 3.2, as opposed to version 3.1, 3.0, and so forth. So we have all the numbers for all the variants.
Okay, and sort of related to that, when you were talking about being able to do the AI on subject as opposed to just pages, is that based on your engine looking for keywords, or is that based on metadata? When you say subject.
Okay, here in that case, it's not metadata related. It has to be really NLP related based on the content itself. Okay, so see that as keywords if you want, but not even the keywords, the entire content. So there is ways to analyze content with NLP technology and create this sort of cluster and have the technology automatically discover what piece of content relates to what piece of content. Metadata could be part of that. That could come as part of the analysis and the rules, but it's not just metadata driven. It's really reading the content itself.
So they're getting a lot for free that they don't have to do effort for, that the AI is.
I mean, when you have thousands or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of topics, and it's always changing, you cannot do things manually. It has to be done all automatically by the servers, by the technology. Otherwise, you cannot manage that.
Right. Okay, here's one about, are the analytics also a standard part of Fluid Topics out of the box, or is it a premium service fee associated?
No. Analytics, all the analytics that I've shown you here, all that is part of is out of the box. That's what you get with Fluid Topics when you have it. It's we consider analytics as a core function of the system, not as a byproduct, not as a premium service, because basically, if you do content delivery, you need to understand what happens with your content, and that's the value proposition of having a product like Fluid Topics. That's part of it. So you have all that as part of the product.
Okay. You mentioned providing personalization options so that customers are willing to log in. What type of personalization options does Fluid Topics provide? I think you hinted at some of those.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have a new search technology. That's where we come from. As you know, Kathy, we've been in the search business for like 20 years, and our core strategic asset is machine learning based NLP, content enrichment, and advanced semantic search. And we have a new search engine, the search technology that we've been working on for like 5 or 6 years now, at least. That is in preview mode. So it's not. We have shown that to few customers only, and it's going to be released in around Christmas. And with this new technology, we can get any info about the user and put that into the search query. And that's re-rank everything dynamically, very much like Google. You know, you don't have to click on facets with Google. Google learns what content you look at. And automatically adapts the search result based on that. So you got a profile that is created automatically and dynamically by the search technology by just looking at what you do and learning from what you do. So we do the same. We have the same technological capability to see what people do, and that comes from the analytics, but as well get that info from your system. I mean, if you have a CRM, if you have Fluid Topics customer and you have a CRM, and you know inside your customer relationship management system, in your system, that this company has acquired this product, like product ABC, and this user belongs to company or is in charge of maintaining this device, that's info you have somewhere. You can dynamically provide that to Fluid Topics, and that's very simple to do. And then we're able to inject that on the fly into the search query, and that re-ranks everything according to that. So basically, we have this capability, and that's very complex to do, because taking anything that you know about anyone and making that part of a search query that it becomes an info for re-ranking results is super advanced technology. There's nothing really existing on the market for free, freely available for that. I mean, and we have this capability that we have developed. We've been working on that, as I said, for many years. It's pretty cool to see that really, as a user, I can set my preferences, but the system learns from you, and another database can tell, and we can get all this info, just put that into the search query as well with the keywords, and that gives different results for the different people, for different users.
Cool. Let's see. For understanding content usage, you had a slide on that. It shows the flow from one part of the content to the next. How might you use that information? What might be the business impact of this information?
The business impact itself, probably, that's a good question. I never thought about it this way. It's mostly tracking how people consume by for providing this sort of this sort of timeline about where people go from one piece of content to another one. So the business impact is more for understanding users' behavior from a user perspective, but from a content perspective, knowing that, well, I don't know, we can just tell to tech writers, when people read that, those are the exit pages, somehow where they go next. Do they stay in the same book? Do they click on the links that are in the content to move to something else? Do they restart a search? So very much like Google does, this sort of where do they come from when they enter this book, topic, whatever it is, and then where do they exit? Where do they go next? I think, I don't know if from a business perspective you could make sense of that. That's a good question. I don't know. I have to ask users, our customers, if they like to see that when analyzing content. Imagine you see in this sort of screen that I've shown here, like in context information, like where people are here. This is the traffic you have. This is the views, but put more info here and say, and this is where most of the time they come from, and this is where they go next. They go to the next section, next topic. They continue reading, or they go back for a search. So that could be something here, but I don't know what. I mean, that would be nice, but I don't know if it has a business impact.
So related to the business impact, they're asking, are the insight reports also out of the box? The connection to customer support is extremely interesting to them.
Now, making that well, this is something we are currently working on, so I won't show you. But we have the track, we have everything. It's more like we are working on the rendering of that because we have all the logs for each and every user. We have everything, so it's more like creating the screen. But again, that would be visible inside Free Topics. So the question is, how do you connect that to the help desk system? So probably it's about making this piece of info available, and then it would be plugged inside the customer, the help desk tool, so that when people, for example, I don't know, open a ticket, a support agent is dealing with a case, opening the case, and Prop could say, okay, show me what this user has done before. And then that could query automatically through topics, get the info, and do the same sort of rendering, or we could provide a widget or something that displays that inside the help desk tool, so that in context, the support agent can see the case and see what the user has done before.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Let me just make sure I caught them all. I think I have. And like I said, normally when I say that, one or two come in, but I think we've got them all covered. Thanks so much. Are there any last parting words you want to let everybody know?
Any question? No?
Nope.
Nope.
Other than a couple thank yous, very informative. I forgot. I usually wrap up with those comments, but those are coming in. But no questions though.
Okay, and so thank you very much. Thank you all for attending the talk. I hope you liked it and you enjoyed the presentation. Feel free to reach out. I think you got the email, everything, or go to the freetopics.com website. I think there is a way to reach out to us anywhere else. Shoot me an email. We'll be glad to continue the
email and the link for the recording. So we'll make sure of that. And I hope to see you in person come next May. Fingers crossed that we can meet there and outside of Phoenix for Convex Tempe, which will be great.
That would be great.
In the meantime, we'll see you virtually a few more times.
Okay, take care all. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.